Welcome to our next in the series of Rock End Rockstars. With a team of over 30 people, Samuel Griffiths heads what would have to be one of the largest property management businesses in the country at Luton Properties in Canberra, and he is the man we'll be talking to in this episode. Samuel, thank you very much for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin.
What do your friends call you, mate? Do they call you Sam or Samuel? Or is it only your mother who calls you Samuel?
Sam, generally. Yeah, I've got a few other nicknames, but Sam's the most popular.
We'll go with that, my friend. Hey, Sam, how is the department structured? I mean, 30 people. Tell me, what sort of model do you use? Is it task or portfolio?
So it's all portfolio. I like to say it's back to basics. So you've got one property manager who does every aspect of that property management for all of their clients. And I've worked somewhere previously where they did have pods and they did have task-based kind of setup. And I feel that the old school approach still wins in this business. I think it's been it has been trialled pods previously, but it's always come back to just being that single one property manager, portfolio-based, as simple as that.
Yeah, I think most landlords really prefer to know who they're dealing with as opposed to, I mean, it's quite unnerving when you're dealing with different people. It's 30 people on your team. Just give me maybe a snapshot of the business. Is it over a number of offices? How widespread is it? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, so it's across 8 offices that branch out across Canberra. So they've all got their own markets, we'll call it. It is actually higher than 30 people, not too much more, but I can't take all the credit for the day-to-day management of these people. There's in each office there is a highly skilled senior property manager who basically deals with the property managers and the administration staff on a daily basis. And then from there, it's got obviously office directors and the sales teams and so on. And we're currently undergoing franchise as we speak on a few of those offices. So things are about to change potentially again because there'll be a bit more, I guess, free reign on the structure of each office themselves.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for Luton Properties, and I've watched that company develop over a number of years. It's really quite spectacular, the market share that you have there. With that number of offices, can you just give me a ballpark figure of how many properties you'd be looking after?
Ballpark, I think as of December figures that I did, it was about 2,700 across the brand. And each office varies significantly based on their market as well in terms of what they actually manage per office.
Yeah, I counted on your website. I think you mentioned there the team is over 30. It is. I counted up about 32 or 33. That brings with it a whole new dynamic in terms of communication. Can you describe to me? I know you've said there that there's different layers in each of those offices, so someone's responsible for each office. But how do you, as the head of property management, handle your communication both with those leaders and with the team overall?
As of recent, a lot of it is done. Technology is a great tool, so that makes it obviously a lot easier to communicate a lot more effectively and a lot quicker. But it's all done through meetings, very calculated meetings, because it's no secret that meetings can take up a lot of time for sometimes absolutely no reason. So within the offices, there's the one-on-ones with each staff member, which are conducted by the senior property manager. So they're weekly. And then we've got a monthly senior property managers meeting, which we host at different offices each month, where all of the senior property managers get together and basically talk about what needs to be talked about, talk about staffing, talk about market trends, talk about all sorts of things, and any other massive changes across the brand that are required are discussed there, and then obviously the layering then kicks in for that information to be communicated effectively within that office. It is a big task having that many offices across Canberra. It's a lot of driving when you need to be somewhere in person, but I don't know how much people know about Canberra, but it's not exactly a huge trek across, and there's not a whole lot of traffic. So, but technology plays a big part of that. We try to get away from emails by using instant messaging services. We use SharePoint for the sharing of all documents and things like that. So it's come a long way.
Yeah, I would imagine that Rockend's a big player in how you communicate all of that too, because it's one thing that it does do. It brings it all together, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think, for example, I can log in across all of our databases because they are all separate. but it's as simple as a phone call. Hey, can you look at this? And we're looking at the same thing live time. So I think that's irreplaceable.
Absolutely, and I mean that's what Rockend's been built for. Property Tree is for all styles of property management across all levels of business. In looking through your team too, Sam, I noticed you've got the traditional administrators, you've got property managers, but you also have something called new relationship managers. Is that the role of is that a BDM role?
Essentially, yes. It's just a dedicated BDM with just a different name on it, I guess. Most of the offices have a new relationship manager. Some are purely dedicated to only bringing on new business, and others are a mix of managing a very small portfolio and obviously in charge of bringing on the new business. And I think it's previously where I've worked in the industry, it's never been necessarily, it's always been a target-based role. In this business, we're trying to get that mix right between, well, you need to know property management, you can't just sell it if you don't know it. So that's why we're trying to mix them in with the property management as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you make there, because we see dedicated BDMs in businesses, and I've got to say too, I really like the name New Relationship Manager, because I think it's a better description of that title. It's certainly softer when you're talking to people. I build new relationships and I'll welcome you into the team. But just getting back to your point there about, because I did notice in your job descriptions on the website that a number of those new relationship managers are also property managers, and that's a great reason you gave us there, is that they've got to maintain that skill, that understanding of how to manage properties.
Yeah, well, I guess if I was a prospective landlord, the first things I'd be asking would be, what happened? What do I do if my tenant stops paying rent? And if you've got a new relationships manager selling a product and they don't actually know the answer to that question, I guess I would probably lose a little bit of faith. Or just not understand why that person didn't have that answer, being in the industry that they are. So I guess by having that blended role, they stay current with what is actually happening in just property management. So it's a huge selling point.
Let's talk about the team now and your expectations of performance. Do you use KPIs, key performance indicators?
Yeah, so they were updated fairly recently. And that was done in collaboration with all of the senior staff, and that was done to just drill down, not to keep them brief, but to just make the KPIs very specific and achievable as well. So it's a fine line between being achievable and sort of not being challenging enough to allow that person to challenge themselves and grow a little bit as well, because property management it's no secret, it's a hard game and things get pushed to the side quite often. So we saw it as a challenge to get people to further push themselves to achieve those KPIs and also grow within themselves. So they're metered, I guess, on a weekly basis, and then they're spreadsheeted, we'll call it, on a monthly basis to see, where the trends are occurring, when our staff, are struggling a little bit, and what times of the year is that, and that's where we can provide extra support, and we give the feedback to our team members through the one-on-ones. So I think they vary very differently for each business, and I think KPIs are very, very he's got to be very, very careful with them, because it can essentially push some people out of a job if they don't feel that they'll ever be able to complete a task that you're actually asking them to do, for example. So I think it's a very collaborative thing to make them work and have them achieved.
KPIs are great for a team. You would also have your own KPIs for the owners of the business overall, things like, the growth of the rent roll, which would be your concern, and also the turnover, loss management and so on. How do you monitor those, and which are the key ones for you as a business leader?
I guess they range, and they're prioritised at different times. Probably across the last 12 months, there's been a shortage of property management staff out in the market across Canberra. So that's people have left our business and other businesses, and everyone's chopping and changing. And I sort of for the last 6 months, I made my focus to be on the staff, to make sure that they're happy, because ultimately, if they're happy, our clients will be happy. And the less staff turnover that you have, the more properties that you'll retain and grow by. And I know that that's a huge thing, not to mention the entire human resources side of staff coming and going, which is, it's going to happen in any business. But I know that that's a huge thing for the directors and so on within property management, because the loss of people creates so many more waves past that as well. So that's been a huge focus point on myself for the last we'll call it 6 months, most likely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no doubt you are running a very big business there. You'd be concerned with things like, you know, the economy, where it's all headed, and the industry overall. Have you had an opportunity, or can you give me some feedback about what you think are the biggest challenges for the industry? And we'll stick with property management, say in the next 12 to 18 months. What do you see ahead, Sam?
I see further penny pinching from property owners' perspectives, and it's totally understandable.
Can you tell me what you mean by penny pinching? What's
costs are going up? Rents aren't really following that with recent legislative changes and the CPI being brought to the ACT, only being able to increase rent by a certain percentage. That's obviously thrown some confusion through the Canberra market and the owners. Because previously you'd look at the market data and you'd make a recommendation, and it was always generally a reasonable or generous rental increase each rent review. So you know, the property owners would feel as though they're getting something a little bit back each year to help them, you know, pay the cost of having that particular property. And you've got the single mum and dad investors that are paying, they're looking at their bills versus their income from the property, and then they've got the management fee somewhere sitting in the middle there, just as the most basic fee that's always charged. And that they can't change the other fees, and that's understandable. So obviously our management fee becomes questioned. So I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest things. It's kind of already started. It hasn't been a huge problem for us up until this point, because we don't negotiate on fees all that much. I say all that much is because you have to have some wiggle room with different clients. You can't say that you never budge on fees, I don't think, because everyone will. But we've upheld a certain standard within the Canberra marketplace, and it's no secret that Luton's obviously a very well recognised brand. So you get what you pay for. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Mate, just before we leave you there, who inspires you? How do you stay inspired?
It's something that I guess it needs reevaluation all the time, because it may change. But for me, it's always my family. I'm a husband, and I'm a father of a little boy and a little girl. And I guess the person that inspires me the most, it took some real thinking for me to answer this question, actually, Kevin. So probably my son. He's 5. He was born pretty sick, so he's profoundly deaf, pretty much in both ears, and there's other things attributed to what he was born with, and so he's got all his hearing devices and glasses and whatever else. And property management's a hard game. I think anyone in property management would say some days just become heavy because of the way that you become ingrained in people's lives by managing their home or managing their investment or whatever it may be. He gets through every day that's pretty heavy, so I think I can stay pretty motivated and take a leaf out of his little book and keep doing what I need to each day based on that.
That's wonderful, mate. That's wonderful. What's his name?
Billy. He's William, but he's definitely a Billy the Kid. That's yeah, and he doesn't stop.
Well, mate, give him our best wishes and all the love in the world, and well done, mate. It was lovely talking to you, Sam. Congratulations on what you're doing, and look forward to watching continued success out of Luton Properties. Well done, mate. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Kev. Cheers.